thanks to everybody that's joining here this morning. It was a few months ago that Mark Armour had a great idea. He said, why don't we get together, have kind of an informal meeting? Everybody that is interested in baseball landmarks is probably interested in sharing a little bit about baseball landmarks. And if you are here and maybe you've not ever met any of us before, I'm John Racanelli. Uh, Chris Kamka is on the call too, and Mark, and the three of us kind of are heading up the Landmarks Committee, which has tried to do the baseball map, and more recently, based on a lot of mostly all input from Dr. Fred Worth, the baseball graves map. So hopefully each of you here has at least used one of them, used both of them, and have found them to be not only useful, but have kind of helped in your enjoyment of trying to find some baseball landmarks. So um, basically what we were thinking about doing today was just a couple quick announcements for the committee. Some people have sent photos in and kind of wanted to talk about some of their baseball landmarks that they visited that they found enjoyable or significant or profound. And after that, if there's anybody else that didn't submit any photos but still wants to jump in and talk about their favorite baseball landmark, please do that. It's kind of a free open format. I'll go through the slideshow, but then we can kind of talk about any other topics after that. As far as baseball landmark hunting is concerned, I started doing this before I knew there was another person on earth that was even interested in doing this. I would drive out of my way to see an old ballpark or try to find a historical marker that had been erected in somebody's honor or to mark the place of an old ballpark or something. Much more recently, I've started, visiting the graves and paying my respects to the departed baseball players and other personnel that have been involved in the game. And what I find so amazing about it is there's a couple people here on the call that I have visited some of these places with. Traveling with friends to see these things is an awful lot of fun. And even if you're doing it solo, sometimes, I'll have work somewhere where a few minutes out of my way, I can stop and see something. It really takes you on some adventures. It takes you off of the interstates and allows you to see places in the United States and beyond that you probably would never have otherwise visited or thought to go see. So that's one of the things that I really love about baseball travel, baseball exploring, and so forth. So I just wanted to hop into the slideshow here.
The map is really outstanding, by the way.
Well, thank you. It's been the hard work of an awful lot of people to get it to where it's at. So
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
yeah. So just kind of basically, if you haven't ever gone to the committee, the Landmark Committee landing page, you'll find information there about the SABR baseball map. And if you kind of scroll down, you'll see that there is a video for the baseball map where me and Bill Perch went and kind of drove around a little bit Chicago where we live to see some things and use the map in action. The map works fantastic on your desktop or your laptop to try and plan your trip. And then if you have a tablet or a phone, it works amazingly to take you from spot to spot by just hitting on the pop-up box, I need directions. As long as you have Google Maps on your phone, it will give you turn-by-turn directions from wherever you are to that location. So it's pretty neat. So that will work for both the baseball map and the Graves map. If you haven't figured out how to get to the Graves map, if you scroll down on the landing page, you'll see that there's a link there. Also wanted to talk about corrections. If you see that there's a correction needed, if you know of a location that should be on the SABR baseball map or a grave that isn't yet on the graves map, when you see that corrections, it'll give you a link to a Google sheet that you could put all that information on. And if at any point you need to contact Chris or Mark or me, our emails are down here too. So one of the things that I'll be sending out in the next day or two is the link for a Google spreadsheet we're kind of at that between seasons period where a lot of teams, especially in the lower minor leagues and wood bat college leagues and independent leagues, there is usually some jockeying during the off season. Teams fade away, new teams are brought in. A lot of times teams change names. I know that the team in Lexington was the Counterclocks last year, and now they're returning to the Legends this year. And ballpark changes, ballpark name changes with the expiration of naming rights and those kinds of things. So what we did last year was put out a list, a lot of volunteers put in some time just to check for each league to make sure that all of the information for the teams was correct and the ballpark addresses and names and so forth were correct. We also would like to be as complete as possible. There are a ton of college wood bat leagues, a lot of them that we don't have on the map yet, but we would like to. So when I send that out, hopefully you'll volunteer. A lot of people that did it last year, I'll ask whether they want to do it again. So some of them you'll see have already been claimed. But if there's any ones that you're interested in hopping in, please put your name down. If you're just willing to do whatever and you just want something assigned to you, there'll be a general volunteer list. You could just put your name there. And then we'll get those updated before the season starts. We also need help adding photographs to the maps, both for the regular map and the Graves map. There's a lot. I mean, the Graves map, if you haven't looked at it, I think is over 7,000 or 8,000 individual grave sites that Fred Worth visited, almost all of them in person. It's really an unbelievable endeavor on his part. And it's crazy that he was willing to share all that information with us to make that map work. But if you have questions about how to add pictures, just let one of us know and we can get you that information. I hope that all of you, at least at some point, have checked out the Hardball Voyager blog. That is our specific committee blog where you can write about anything that you want to that has to do with baseball landmarks. It does not have to be something that's on the map. Say, for instance, you're in an area where you know that during the off season, so-and-so lived in a house or lived on a farm and you want to write about that. That's awesome. We want to hear about that. So please contact one of us if you're interested. But anything for the Hardball Voyager really could be as simple as, here's a place that I visited last summer. Here's 3 photographs, and I really enjoyed it. And that's really all we need. It doesn't have to be an in-depth research-laden article. If you want to do that, we're all over that too. But just wanted to let you know that we're always looking for contributions, and it doesn't take much. If you've never written anything for SABR, it's really easy to dip your toe here. This isn't some peer-reviewed research article where you're going to have people fact checking it and everything. It's going to be, as long as it looks okay, we'll publish it. So, and like I said, those links on the landing page, if you feel like there's something that needs to be there that isn't there, or if you think that the frequently asked questions doesn't cover the one that you came up with, please let us know and we'll get that changed. And this is just the other half of it. All of the different things here. You can join the committee if you're not on the committee already. If you have questions, you can let us know. It's the links for the maps and then videos on how to work everything. But as far as sharing the show and tell part, I think I'll just start. Like I said, one of my favorite parts about being in SABR is meeting other people that enjoy baseball the way I do. I don't know who said that originally, but I think that's one of the most amazing things about the organization. And you can see here is it's me and Rich Ray and Bill Perch and Chris Kamka. We're in front of Mel Ott's grave down in, it's Gretna. I think it's Gretna, not New Orleans, but down in Louisiana. And this was on a trip that we went down. Jason Schwartz got married. We were all invited. We went down, and during the day, while there were preparations for the wedding, some of us decided to go on a trip and drive around and see some things. So that was
Metairie
Cemetery,
New Orleans. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And also buried there, I don't have a picture, is Zeke Benura, who is a ball player who is near and dear to Chris's heart, comes up very often in his work and shares a birthday with Bill. So it's kind of a pretty cool thing to see.
And I am so short that I'm standing on the second step. So.
So this was a trip that Bill and Jason and I did last year. We drove out to Pittsburgh and got to see this amazing Rennie Steadit art installation that Jason did. That's on permanent display now at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. So it's crazy to have something that's on the baseball landmarks map now, something that you know the person that did it. It's just an unbelievable honor to have been there with Jason to see it with him. And one of the things that we've really tried to do with the committee is make sure that when you're visiting a ballpark like PNC, that if you want to see specific things there, that they're going to be listed individually. There's all kinds of statues around the ballpark. There's markers on the inside of the ballpark. There's these art installations. And one of the things we would love to do is have the art installations for each location shown so that as you're walking through, you want to see something about Bill Madlock or something I believe that was on one of the other walls, shows it's a 1972 baseball card with the photographs or the artist renderings of all of the ball players that participated in the first ball game there in 1971, where it was either African American or Black Latino players. So there's all kinds of great stuff to see. And one of the things that has always frustrated me is going to a new ballpark. They don't necessarily do the best job at telling you where these different things are, where the statues are, where there are cool things within the ballpark that a visiting fan might want to see. So this was just one of the things that we got to see was Jason's with him, which was awesome. And then was on the same trip that Bill and Jason and I stopped in Elwood City, Pennsylvania, for the dedication ceremony for Lewis Hack Wilson's historical marker, which was pretty fun. So if you don't know me, I'm a huge Hack Wilson fan, and to be able to be there for the dedication was amazing. So is Bruce here? Bruce Adams, are you on the
I
call?
am, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so Bruce, you were the first one to respond.
I figured it was alphabetical order.
No, I just did it in the order that people responded.
Okay, thanks.
And alphabetically probably works too, but
Thank you.
yeah, I've got a couple of your pictures that you sent over, so it's all you. Take it away.
So, first of all, thanks, guys, for the work that you've done. It's just amazing. I mean, I totally love visiting all these places. So my wife and I in the late 90s and the early 2000s wrote 3 different volumes of a Fodor's travel book, a guide to family baseball vacations. So I always tried to slip in at each city anything like the things that you cover, the statues, the memorials, the graves, the whatever, just to tip people off to that. Then I was trying to figure out how to raise money to fix fields for kids, and I won't go into the long story, but anyhow, I ended up starting a summer college baseball team, and obviously we needed a ballpark. So this is what we built. It's named after the Hall of Fame journalist Shirley Povich, who covered from Lou Gehrig to Cal Ripken Jr. The team is the Bethesda Big Train, so named after Walter Johnson, who had a house just a couple of miles from this ballpark, which is in suburban Maryland, right at where the Beltway, a Beltway exit. It was just been a blast. I mean, I tried to do a little Cooperstown here in the front. There's only 600 seats. It's Summer College Baseball League. It's the Cal Ripken Senior Collegiate Baseball League. But all the seats are, Camden Yards, dark green. We try to pick up all the red brick. I had an Ebbets Field hand-operated scoreboard that we built when we opened in 1999. And then while I was working for my county executive, I handed it over to a youth group, and they made it all electronic. So my goal next year is to put it back to hand operated. The next picture, do you have the sculpture? So you see the art. So sorry, stay there. So you see Shirley under the tree, just to our right of the arch. Yes. So that's Shirley Povich. What you can't see, maybe you see a couple of lines on the left. On our left, see the plaque. So the plaque is telling you about Walter, and this artist friend of mine did this really cool sort of string art of Walter pitching. So that's cool. You can barely see. Yeah, if you look, sorry, the gates were shut. I don't know why I did that. The kind of color there between the gates that you see, there's murals of the kind of history of Walter Johnson and of Shirley Povich on each side. As you walk in, if you look left and look right, you see these murals. The guy who helped me raise the money to do this said, I want to create a living baseball history museum. So we really have played up Walter and Shirley. Sorry, now to the sculptures. So a few years ago.
Can I ask you a question before we move on, Bruce?
Yeah, sorry.
Actually, you know what? One of the things that we try to do too is make sure that when you have a ballpark listed here, we're also separately listing the locations of statues, the locations of markers or plaques and so forth. So one of the things we'd like to do is then mark separately the Walter Johnson plaque on the left, and then that Shirley Povich plaque and artwork on the right. If there's murals on the inside that we think might deserve separate listing, we'd want.
They're pretty cool, actually. They're quite large, and yeah, they're probably worthy.
Yeah.
And they've held up really well. So what do I have to do? Take a picture of them and send them to you?
Yeah.
I'm not so good with technology, so I might just send you stuff in.
That's fine. If you want to just email them to me, that's fine.
Yeah. So am I running out of time? Or I got another couple of minutes?
Yeah, talk about this. And it looks like after that, I don't know if Richard Smiley's got a question then.
Yeah, sorry, go.
Yeah, not so much a question is just a comment that, I've been to that park. I didn't realize, you're the designer of it. It's wonderful. I was there because I'm a Georgetown alumni and I've gone to baseball there, and they used to play there.
They did. They bailed out a couple of years ago.
Yeah. But
yeah, thank you. So I went to see Maury Povich on the left, Shirley's son, and I said, I've seen this picture of your dad interviewing Walter Johnson, and we should have a sculpture of that. And I just said it because I needed to get it out of my head. I knew it would never happen, but I needed him to tell me, we're not going to be able to do that. At any rate, he says, great, let's do it. It just floored me. I later found out, he said, send me that picture. I've never seen that picture. It turns out I had photoshopped that picture in my head, apparently, because I asked Hank Thomas, Walter's grandson, who knows everything, wrote his biography. He said, I've never seen that picture, and I couldn't find it. I think there was a Walter Johnson cardboard something where you could get your picture with Walter, and somehow I photoshopped it. But fortunately, I lied to him unintentionally, because anyhow, we ended up doing it. The guy next behind Shirley is the parks director. The guy on the right in the gray coat, that's Hank, Walter's grandson. The guy behind that's the parks director. The guy behind Walter is Toby Mendez. Toby Mendez. So Maury says to me, how much is it going to cost? And I said, Maury, I have no idea. I thought you'd tell me no. I could get it out of my head. So I started poking around, and I find Toby Mendez just an hour or so away from my house. I love the sculptures at Camden Yards. Toby did all of them. Toby did Teammates at Fenway. Toby did Thurgood Marshall at the State House in Annapolis. He did Ryan. He's done Gandhi. I mean, he's a fabulous human being, and he loves civil rights and sports. And Shirley was the guy who beat up on the Washington football team and said, they needed to hire some black player. So Shirley's record on civil rights is impeccable. So Toby really got into this project, and this is the unveiling from like November 2021. So the only other thing, well, the Cal Ripken Collegiate Baseball League Hall of Fame is on a wall behind Maury, and between that wall and Maury is a pretty cool thing. I was in Los Angeles once, and I looked up and I saw this street signs going 20 different directions. It was like, whoa, what is that? And it pointed to the sister cities and said how far away they were. So we have a sign like that right behind Maury that has the name, the date the guys played for Big Train, the date of their first Major League Baseball game, and an arrow with a mileage pointing to the team that they played their first game for our 24 guys who've made it to the major leagues. I think I've overstayed my welcome.
Very cool. I didn't know when you sent this over that you were involved in it, so very nice.
Yeah, it's my baby.
Yeah. All right. I had heard from Ed Epps about Duncan Park in South Carolina. I don't see him on the call. He wasn't sure whether he'd make it. So I don't really know anything about this and can't really say much about it, but he wrote a book about it, and at the very least we could plug his book. So if you're interested in Duncan Park, look for it, and hopefully he'll be able to join us in a future Zoom. All right, next up is Bob with Rickwood Field.
Yeah, so it was like 2012 or 2012 when just before Wrigley was doing, they're basically approaching 100 years. So I was just Googling old ballparks. Rickwood Field popped up. I checked out the website. I have in-laws that actually live in Panama City. So Birmingham is the route going through. And in 2012, I talked my in-laws into letting me make a stop. They know, I'm baseball goofy. My wife's used to it. Pull up to Rickwood Field. It's a Saturday. You can self-tour. So it wouldn't, you couldn't do a self-tour, but of course the gate's open. If the gate's open, that means I can walk in. The last thing I heard my wife say was, "I'm not bailing you out." So I walked into the middle of the field, just walked out, and here are all these mannequins on the field, and a bunch of young kids with a couple mannequins in each arms. They're running along the ballpark. They're placing all these folks there. And I talked to a gentleman. I actually, unfortunately, can't remember his name. He said, "Are you here for the movie? They're going to start on Monday." And I hadn't even heard of the movie 42. And lo and behold, they were setting this up for the movie 42. The outfield walls were all green screened out already. And it was just such a surrealistic a view of a ballpark that was half filled with mannequins. So it looked very, very bizarre. Wound up going to the Rickwood Classic that summer, which was it's normally right around Memorial Day. Happened to be the Barons, of course, White Sox affiliate against the Tennessee Smokies. Fergie Jenkins threw out the first pitch. Fascinating ballpark. I mean, it's old. It is very old. Fast forward that to last year, November, again, taking a trip down to see the in-laws. This photo is actually taken with my phone by Jabril Weirs, who is the head grounds crew. I walked up to the ballpark. Again, it's all construction. I find somebody. I politely say hi. I go, I probably can't go in here, can I? And he goes, "Well, no." I said, "I just wanted a couple of pictures of the field. I wanted to post that on the Landmarks Twitter page." He actually took my phone, went out there, took a couple of pictures, and that's when I actually found out. He goes, "Well, I'm the head's groundskeeper," so on and so forth. Because I knew the Negro League tribute game was going to be there. He actually invited me in and took me on a tour of their Hall of Fame room. A lot of old memorabilia. They have an original cash register. They have a lot of stuff from the movie 42. Just fascinating, and such a very nice young man. Unfortunately, again, I left my mother-in-law and my wife in the car for about an hour. My wife's used to it. My mother-in-law, not so much, but I still got a Christmas gift, so I'm okay. But I've always been fascinated with Rickwood Field. That was my third trip there, and it was just, again, surrealistic. If you're nice to folks, you talk to them. He gave me so much information. It was really enjoyable. Again, he spent an hour with me at the end of his day, taking the pictures, everything else. They've got that's Jabril right there. They've got the concept photos of how the dugouts are going to change. I sure hope they don't change the bathrooms, because they are something to see. They are really old. It's very, very bizarre. But beyond the wall that they have is actually the original wall. It's a brick wall. It's 400 and some feet. It's way out there. Aside from that, the history of Rickwood Field, well over 100 Hall of Famers, either a player, manager, announcer. Willie Mays was 16, 17 when he started here, so tons of history. One more thing with when the game I went to in 2012, the Rickwood Field Classic, they actually celebrated the Birmingham Black Barons 1948 championship. And again, you don't realize how close you are to something that far away. There were well over 45 Negro League players that had showed up, lined up along the field. They had a tent that a lot of them had written books and stuff, and I was just blown away by it all. So neat place. Boy, if you have the chance, get out there and just take a look at it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I will second that heartily. We went in 2016. I did not know what to expect when we got there. You just walked in and it was open. So I'm there with my sons and my nephew and my brother-in-law. So we brought our gloves and we went and we kind of walked around, and there was a guy on the mound just kind of doing some work, tamping it down. And he kind of waves to us like, come on the field. And we're like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, come on. So we go out there and he's like, it looks like you guys have your gloves with you. Do you have a ball? I'm like, yeah, we brought a ball. He's like, do you need a couple more? Sure. And he had this bag of baseballs from, I guess, the Alabama high school state tournament might have been held there. So we ended up leaving with a bunch of baseballs, played catch out on the field, walked around, sweat like you wouldn't believe. It was so hot and humid, but it was awesome. It should be on every baseball fan's must see list for sure. So that was awesome. Thanks, Bob.
Certainly.
All right. Bruce, you're here, right?
Yes. So you are looking at Maggie. Maggie is a magnolia tree, lives in Atlanta, and probably as most of us on the call know, the Atlanta Braves left a perfectly good ballpark about 8 years ago, Turner Field. They moved about 10 miles up I-75 to Truist Park. And Truist Park anchors what the Braves refer to as Battery Atlanta. It's a huge complex with stores, shops, restaurants, apartments, hotels. But the good part of it is that all the commercialization, they've planted this tree. I think it was Earth Day in 2022. And she's about 800 to 1,000 feet out of the first base gate, if I remember right. But what's interesting about her is where she came from, which takes us to another famous Atlanta ballpark, Ponce de Leon Park. The original was built, I think it was 1907, a wooden ballpark, home to the Southern Association of Minor League Atlanta Crackers. And I believe that ballpark burnt down about 20 years later, and a second Ponce de Leon Park was built. and in straightaway center field was a magnolia tree. I believe it varies depending what stories you read about it, but the tree was about 450, 460 feet from home in straightaway center. And supposedly, I think Babe Ruth and maybe Eddie Matthews are rumored to have hit home runs into the tree 460 feet away at various barnstorming games, exhibition games in the 30s and 40s. And at that time, there was no center field fence at dead center, so the tree was in play. But I think it probably was about 20 years after it opened that the park ownership changed hands, and the new owner, for whatever reason, didn't like a tree growing in the playing field. And luckily for most of us, he didn't just dig up the tree. He decided to bring what was the left and right center field fences in about 40 or 50 feet and totally fenced off the outfield. So I was pleased to know he didn't just dig the tree up. He changed course and moved the outfield fence in, I think it was about 50 feet. So Maggie still stands. I'm sorry, not Maggie, but I guess it's her mother. They actually tore down the Ponce de Leon Park in the 60s once the Milwaukee Braves moved to Atlanta. So Atlanta now had a major league team. They didn't keep the minor league team. And I guess the Atlanta Black Crackers of the Negro Leagues also shared that ballpark in the 20s and 30s. But again, the park was demolished, I believe, a year or two after the Braves moved to Atlanta. But again, the original magnolia tree, which is what, 110, 112 years old, still stands. I think it's in a section of a parking lot for Sears and Roebuck, if I remember right. But what Maggie is a seedling from that original magnolia tree. So I don't know if you can read the plaque. That probably mirrors what I just said. But the Braves did it up nice. They put the plaque up. It talks about the origins of Maggie, where she came from, and I think last I saw, the original tree is 80 feet tall, and I guess the Braves hope that her baby here, Maggie, grows to be similar in size. So I thought it was quite interesting. I just happened to be going to see a Braves game. I guess it was in last year or 2022, and depending on where my seat is leads me to which parking lot I'm going to park in. And just walking from the parking lot to the ballpark, I stumbled across a tree, went down there to read the plaque, take a picture, send it to John, and here's where we are.
Well, it's interesting that Babe Ruth has some connection to the original magnolia tree. So I
Yes.
think there's a tree in Hawaii, like a banyan tree, that's named Babe Ruth or something. I think it's on the map. So Babe Ruth and trees goes together pretty well.
I guess so.
Next is Gary.
Thank you, John. First of all, honor to be here today. I run the New York Giants Preservation Society. It's a group of gentlemen and ladies who still treasure and remember the New York Giants. Most of the members are San Francisco fans as well. There's a lot of history of the Giants in New York, especially around where they played the Polo Grounds. If you guys are ever in New York and need a tour of these places there, I'd be happy to accommodate you. Anyway, I've written numerous letters and spoken to people regarding some of the upkeep there. It is not a rich area. It's a tenement housing. People are struggling there. That being said, history should be preserved. And there are a lot of things there that are just, I mean, look at this sign. This is the original where home plate was. Like I said, I've written letters. I've emailed people a couple weeks ago. Willie Mays Day was celebrated 2/4/24. What a better honor than to honor Willie by maybe doing something with this sign and the other ones you'll see. But how difficult is it to put some tarnish or lacquer or whatever you need to do to make this sign vibrant? I mean, it looks like crap, excuse my language. No reason for it. That's my opinion anyway. Like I said, spoken to people on the phone, written letters, all have fallen on deaf ears. But again, this is not a multi-million-dollar fix. This is nothing. So I don't understand why something can't be done about this. This sign bothers me in particular. You could see it's falling apart. This is on their offices in the Polo Ground Towers. I'll read it to you. Welcome to the Polo Ground Towers. This development was built on the location that Willie Mays and the Giants made famous. Let's keep it beautiful, New York City Housing Authority. I mean, they're telling you to keep the area beautiful, yet the sign has been up on that office, I would think, since the mid-60s. So you're talking about getting close to 60 years old, this sign is. And it's sun bleached and it's barely legible. And you could see the corners are all frayed and falling apart. And again, this is a part of history that should be kept. There's many things down there. They did a great job with the brush stairway. We did a thing called the Polo Grounds Magical History Tour. We went to about 12 different historic sites by the Polo Grounds. These two bothered me more than anything. I mean, they have put up new signage at the Polo Ground Towers. They're in black and orange. And I don't think I don't think these signs need a lot of money to be fixed and or recreated. I think there might be another sign, another picture there.
I don't know if I had another one.
Okay, there was another one there. We went on a tour this year with John Miller of the Giants, the legendary Hall of Fame broadcaster. And he was taken back by what he saw as well, and he spoke to people. But again, nothing seems to be done or will be done. To me, it's a project worth looking into.
Were you involved with the rehabilitation of the brush stairway?
We were invited to attend the formal redeclaration by the San Francisco Giants. Any team who played there chipped in money. And then they had a ribbon cutting ceremony, which I was asked to attend. The Giants were there, and they were the main speakers on the rededication. Lee attended as well.
Wasn't it a big project? Like they were making those stairs usable again?
They were not operable for many, many years.
Yeah.
They were quartered off, so to speak. But people would go around them, and they were very, very dangerous. They made it beautiful. It's got the inscription that about John T. Brush. And it's, besides it being historical, if you've ever been there, there's this huge hill called Coogan's Bluff.
Yeah.
And that stairway really helps people get from the top of Edgecombe Avenue to it's called the Harlem River Driveway. It's actually now called the Willie Mays Driveway. And there's a lot of things down there that historical signage is about Willie Mays Drive, Willie Mays Driveway. The famous shot of him playing stickball. I would love to see a marker there saying, this is where Willie Mays, lived while he played at the Polo Grounds. And if you're ever over there, I mean, it's just a stone's throw away from where the field was.
Yeah, there certainly should be a marker there too, indicating that this is where Hack Wilson took his very first major league at bat as a member of the New York Giants. I'm just kidding. I know that wasn't a very significant event for them, but I was
But
like,
I mean, I think you would all agree that that sign is pretty disgusting.
yeah, yeah, and this could definitely use, I don't know how you uh maintain signs like this, but it sure seems like a good scrubbing and some so I don't know how you do it either, Gary, but it
But
certainly
also,
could look better.
if you look at the building number 2999, that sign there, all the buildings those are new signs with the building number, and they made them black and orange. They have new signages in the front of the apartment complex. I don't know why these things are left to rot.
So, am I unmuted? I think I am.
You are.
I had a comment about this. So it's something I brought up to John and Chris, I think sometime last year. It's just the idea that, I mean, one of the things that we largely have focused on is this committee is sort of documenting where the plaques are, as opposed to making plaques or fixing plaques or whatnot. And SABR does have they do have a grant that they give to local chapters that apply for them, where they will actually give money to pay for or help pay for things like this. And we've done it a few times. SABR has done this a few times. I think this program started in 2022, I think. So it just started, but it's been very successful. And I know nothing about the process. I have no I don't know how to answer the questions that you raised, Gary, but I know that often the holdup is political, and I don't mean that as a bad word. I mean, you have to figure out like who owns the building, and you know, what is the process for who do you talk to within that ownership? It could be the county, it could be an apartment building. I know in Seattle, there's a old ballpark called Six Stadium where the Seattle Rainiers played for 40 years, and then the Seattle Pilots played their one and only year there in 1969. And we have a group in Seattle that is trying to they put up they dedicated some marker for this is where home plate was, and it's just a mess. It is now a Lowe's hardware store. So somewhere in the entrance to the hardware store, there's some marker, but that marker is seen better days, and usually you have to move the display of whisk brooms off to the side to sort of see where the marker is now and everything. And I know there are people at our side on our end that have been working on trying to fix that up, and it is the problem that they have faced is not that people think it's a bad idea, it's that no one is really clear whose job it is. And the company like Lowe's has been sort of like, yeah, we think this is a good idea, and then Lowe's was like merged with True Value. I'm making some of this up. I don't know exactly who the companies were, but the corporations are moving as quickly as the only thing that's static is this is really where Six Stadium was. That we agree on. But in terms of who owns what's outside of it, who the city councilmen are at the time you first start the project, and then 2 months later you have new city council. Anyway, I'm talking too much. But the work that you're describing, which is how do we make this marker beautiful again, which I think is wonderful, really does involve somebody who takes this on as this is something I want to do and is willing to put in the time. And it's not I think that the money part of it is less difficult than who owns it, and how do we actually do it? I mean, who are the people that we have to talk to do it? And I don't think it's a question of meeting resistance. I think it's a question of figuring out whose job it is. And I think that is something that the committee down the road, or maybe starting today, I don't know, could play a role in helping create a roadmap for such a project. Like, how does one do this? And what are the steps to take to do this? And if the result of such a roadmap was fixing the sign at the Polo Grounds, it would be like, not to be all Churchillian here, it would be like our finest hour. It would be the coolest thing that we could do as a committee, I think, is not just to take photos of what other people have done, but actually to do that would be amazing. But it will take a point person that's willing to, put in the time to figure it out.
I appreciate that, Mark. I had sent John a letter that I had sent to a councilwoman at the area. I had spoken to her, and like I said, I would have forwarded John her answer, but there was no answer. They all say that sounds great, like you said. And it was just in time what a way to honor Willie Mays. His name is on that godforsaken sign. Hey, you send a letter to Mays. We're going to redo the sign. We know how much you mean to New York City baseball. That's my feeling anyway.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to what Mark was saying, we have talked about hopefully at some point, not only taking pictures and visiting these places, but helping for people that are interested in getting a plaque erected or a statue built or something, becoming at least a repository for information, a roadmap like Mark said, or tips and tricks. I would expect each situation is going to be different. I know John Daniels is on the call. We've talked a lot about his efforts to get a marker placed for Lakefront Park here in Chicago and the stumbling blocks that he's run into. So I know that these kinds of issues are not unique to Polo Grounds, and maybe with some strength of SABR behind us, we can do things like this. We can make things better. So just like the 19th Century Committee has the grave marker program where they're placing and refurbishing or actually placing brand new markers at places that the marker or the grave was unmarked or was in disrepair. Those are the kinds of things that we would eventually like to do, and hopefully that's the way that things are headed.
Thank you.
I look at that slide of the Polo Grounds plaque, and there's a part of me that just wants to show up with like a little bit of I don't know, bleach or something, and a Q-tip, and just like go in the upper left-hand corner and just start putting I don't know, ammonia or whatever the hell it is. That's the first step. Is I wouldn't want to kill the sign. So it would be interesting to if there was somebody that was involved in this committee that knew a little bit about like what is the best compound to put on something like this. And I'm curious about if somebody did that to like the upper left-hand corner, like would that actually make it obvious how much more attractive the sign would be with some work?
There's an original sign in their office of Willie Mays unveiling the plaque, probably in the mid-'60s, with the mayor of the time, Mayor John Lindsay. I have that picture. Picture doesn't do it justice because the picture is in their office, and the pictures in their office all look like they've gotten water damage on them. But I'm sure it was in pristine condition when all this started, and it just, to me, it's a lot of people go there to look around. You'll see people with cameras It's a shame. It really is. And for some reason, the other sign really bothers me more. I don't know why. It's just because it's fallen apart and it's been out in the same area. And that's on their office wall on the outside of the management office. I mean, I would be embarrassed to have that. I would take it down, if anything, instead of having it there looking like that. But that's just me.
Yeah. and
Hey,
just
Gary,
like-
are those your pictures, Gary?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and just like Mark said too, the grants program, especially for a sign like this, or if all you're looking to do is kind of refurbish the old sign, I would think these would be very worthy of potential grants. So the hard part, right, is getting the bureaucracy of figuring out who can give you permission to do those things. So yeah.
Well, like I said, that letter I forwarded to you last year when we went, there was one of the congressman's representatives took the walk with us. Oh yeah, this is terrible. We got to do something, but nobody does anything.
Yeah. So basically, that was all of the planned photographs that we had. I just included a slide again for the Hardball Voyager blog. Just some ideas if you're thinking about sharing something. If you have information about a place that deserves to have a historical marker, or like we've just talked about, if you know of a place where the marker is missing or has been damaged or really needs some updating, these are perfect things to write about. And hopefully someone will see it, and maybe somebody with some pull will see it, and we can get some of these things taken care of. But that's really about it. As far as the formal portion of it, we just included some chapter engagement. I know that people on the call from all over the country are involved in different chapters. Just think about the Landmarks Committee too next time you meet. Are there different things as a chapter that you can do? Provide, you know, maps for people, or coordinate some kind of top 10 list for your area so that a visiting baseball fan has something that they can go off of if they're looking to do. Maybe it's a chapter event. Go visit a location, visit a few locations. You know, here in Chicago, we get together at ballparks for games, and we go out for lunch, and we have, you know, formal meetings in person. We do Zoom meetings. It might be fun at some point to do some kind of walk around Wrigley Field, walk around Comiskey Park, just kind of look at the stuff that's there on a non-game day when you're not in a crowd of thousands of people, and you can kind of take it in, you know. There's some cool things to do like that. But like Mark said, you know, identify sites worthy of submission to the grants program. One of the things that we don't do as a chapter is actually fundraise, but that's probably another thing that we can at least help with, is publicizing different fundraising efforts, either through social media or through the blog. And then otherwise, we're just looking, if you are in an area and you know that a specific location isn't in the right spot or should be called something different, or there's additional information to add, let us know. The link for the Google Sheet to make the corrections or make the additions is on the landing page. And that's really about it. If you're on Twitter and you haven't connected up with the Landmarks page, please do that. If you are traveling, or if you have photos that you want to show off, tag us and we will repost every single one of them. I love to see this stuff. I want to visit all these places. I kind of have the SABR Landmarks map as a checklist in my head. So as I go down, I'm like, okay, I've been to this area. I've seen these things. I still need to see these things, but we want to see them. We want to share this stuff. And that's really about it for the formal presentation. So I don't know if there's anybody that still kind of wanted to talk about other things landmark related, either committee, places they've been, but they don't have pictures, or anybody else. That just kind of open up the floor to anybody else that wants to hop in.
John, could I say two quick things? I'm not good with this, I guess the chat room. I think somebody wanted information from me. If they want any information, very easy, Giants Guru gmail.com. And last year also, these famous places around the polo grounds, I did a YouTube video of it with pictures. If anybody's interested, they can either go to the New York Giants Preservation Society YouTube channel, or if they email me at the address I said before, I would, cut and paste and send it to them. There's a lot of great stuff down there.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it was Bruce Adams said that if you emailed the photo to him, he could ask the sculptor, Mr. Mendez, how to refurbish it. I can do that if you want me to. I can cut out the metal myself.
Just somebody send me that photo. I know I took a photo of it a long time ago. I had the same reaction Gary had.
Sure.
But if you email me, Toby would know what to use and what not to use. Mark is right. You can really screw something like that up if you use the wrong stuff. I've gotten that lecture from Toby.
So, John, I think one thing we could consider as a committee is to maybe have on our website a sort of a repository for links to things like what Gary was talking about, the video of them walking around. I think that would be a good thing to put in kind of our recommended adjunct lectures or whatever it is that you want. I think it would be kind of fun to have that on the site, so that if I want to look at it someday, that it'll be there, and other things like it, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Mark, just so you know, the tour guide was great. I didn't want to record because I'd be taking away his business. So I did a summary with my pictures explaining everything. So it's not us walking, but you see all the guys and you see all the famous places that we did stop by.
That sounds great. Yeah. So if you have a second, John, I was going to give a brief commercial for this committee, just to share some of my own enthusiasm. I started doing these what we call boondoggles with a couple of friends of mine, starting in 2005, I believe. And we go to the SABR convention every year, and the SABR convention is in a new city that you can't really plan for where it's going to be next year or the year after or whatever. And we generally, the three of us always went. We all live in the Northwest, and we decided, it's kind of a boring story, but anyway, we decided that what we would do is, instead of flying into the convention, or we would fly into a place that was a couple days drive away, and then we rent a car and we would drive to the conference. So for example, if the convention was in St. Louis, we would fly into Kansas City, spend a couple days in Kansas City, and then drive across the state. And we called it the boondoggle because it was completely frivolous things that we did along the way, a lot of which ended up being looking for baseball related sites, old ballparks, graves, etc., before this committee existed and before the map existed or anything. So so we've done this like 16 times or 14 times or something like that. So one day I was talking to Jason Schwartz, and he told me that there was a meeting in Chicago, and this guy gave a talk on this baseball map that he had. And fortunately, the Chicago chapter recorded the talk. So I watched it. I had never met John. I watched his talk. I was so sort of excited about this concept that somebody had a map. First of all, selfishly, because it would have helped us if we'd had such a thing, because we were rolling our own always, right? We were like, you had your smartphone and you're looking at some grave, find a grave or something, but you just don't really know where anything is. So I actually called John on the phone, and we chatted about this, and ultimately, I probably, because of our getting together, because I had been in SABR a long time and knew how to sort of create a committee. John had done all the actual work. And I think between the two of us, I did the 5% of the work that I did was to convince John that this was a committee. This could be a committee. Anyway, to make a long story slightly less long, the last couple of years we've done the boondoggle in 2022. So we were shut down for the pandemic, and I met John actually during the pandemic. I actually went to Chicago, and we saw a lot of baseball stuff. Chicago's easy, by the way, compared to other places that we've been dropped. So last 2022, we drove from Baltimore to Charleston. We kind of did it in reverse. We did it after the convention. The convention was in Baltimore. And then last year, the convention was in Chicago, and we flew into Louisville and drove up from Louisville to Chicago, and just saw things along the way. And I mentioned that because we had the map. Okay, for the first time, the last few years, we've had the map. And let me tell you, it's just been a godsend. I mean, in terms of, and sometimes, you have poor reception and whatnot, so you have to plan it ahead a little bit. But it's remarkable how I'll stumble onto something and I'll think, surely this isn't on the map. And it's on the map. It's like, of course it's on the map. And there's a photo, and here's how you get there. And we always bring our gloves everywhere we go. We don't only do baseball things just because, believe it or not, there are places you can go where there is no, I mean, you're really squeezing the water from a rock. We had a boondoggle a few years ago where the convention was in San Diego, and we were driving from Las Vegas, and we were going through like desert Arizona, and the stuff was really difficult to find. So we woke up one day in Kingman, Arizona, and we're like in the hotel, and I'm looking on Baseball Reference. You can figure out who's buried near where you are. And I discovered that George Grantham, who played in the 1920s, he was a pretty good player, pretty good ball player, was buried in Kingman, Arizona. And I woke up and said, Eureka, we have something to do. We can go visit George Grantham's grave. So we found George Grantham's grave, and it was, in a fairly well kept up cemetery, brought our gloves, went out to the site, and this groundskeeper was there with like one of those big, big riding mowers. And he came by, and that's always an issue because, 98% of the people are really happy to see tourists, but you never know. So, and this guy like stops shuts off his thing, and he comes over to us and says, "Visiting George, huh?" So in Kingman, Arizona, apparently George Grantham is like a big deal, which I didn't know. But it was just, it's like I said, Chicago, there's so much. I mean, there's so much in a place like Chicago or New York or something, but there are really, you can find something in Kingman, Arizona, I guess is the point. And it's really just been fun. And because there's a couple of friends that I've been doing this with, it kind of it allows me to go on trips with my wife and not sort of subject her to this too much. So I have this sort of separate side hustle, which I think has been helpful for my marriage. So anyway, the committee's fantastic. And the lesson, I think, for everybody here is the lesson that I think John and I figured out a few years ago, which is just because we don't do it doesn't mean we can't do it. I mean, the committee could do things that it doesn't currently do. If you have some cool thing you think we should expand into.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting, and just kind of put a button on everything. I was inspired to start creating the database that formed the basis for the committee's map in 2016, based on a visit to Birmingham, Alabama. When we were walking from the parking lot to the ball game at Regents Field to see the Barons, we passed by the Negro Southern League Museum that I had no idea was there and didn't allow myself enough time to do before the game's first pitch. And after leaving and being home, I realized that there was a Willie Mays statue outside of the ballpark that I had no idea was there. And there's actually a photo I took of my boys where you could see it back off in the distance. But I was like, I can't believe that we didn't even know it was there. So it was after those two things happening in Birmingham that I decided I'm just going to kind of, for my own personal use, come up with it was basically an Excel spreadsheet, so that when I went to a new place, because we did baseball trips every year, my kids would go, my brothers-in-law would go, my brother would go, kind of depending on who was available each year. And it was amazing once I talked to Mark and I talked to some of the guys that I knew in SABR, that I wasn't the only person that wanted to do this kind of stuff. So it was pretty cool. And I'm glad that we are where we are, and there's a lot more that we can do. So I'm looking forward to the future. But I think with that, we're a little over an hour at this point, unless anybody else has anything that they want to talk about or add. I think we might want to wrap things up.
Just real quick, actually, it's pretty funny that I'm constantly stopping off in Birmingham on my way. I had no idea about that either, which is kind of sad. But my wife and I did visit a couple of graves when we were in Panama City. Actually, my niece lives in a town where there was a cemetery that had a Negro League player in it. So even when they said, "Oh, what's Uncle Bob doing?" and she said, "Well, we're going to go look at a grave." So she kind of loosely explained it, but she was actually fascinated by it. She asked for the link, and I showed her all the graves and stuff, and she was fascinated. So I mean, it's fabulous. It's just incredible. So yeah, it is pretty cool.
Robert, how close are you to the groundskeeper?
I talked to him that one time, and that was it. And I've got a letter to send to him.
You got to get tickets for this year's game.
Amen.
He told me, he goes, just show up. I don't know what that meant, but hey, Gary, one thing in their Hall of Fame museum, they have a chair from a seat from the Polo Grounds there that he said is for sale. So he was quoting about $1,500. So, but it's actually there. I took a picture of it. So
we have a real lot of people in our group. If he wants to send it to me, I will gladly send it out. I bet you he gets a purchaser.
it's like I'll send a note to him.
And make sure you take a little bit for yourself. All right.
Always.
All right, this has been fun. Hopefully this will just be the first of many. If you have other things you've shared today, do you want to share something else? Obviously, we want to see it. I want to see it. And we'll meet again. Hopefully everybody has a good rest of their Sunday, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Very good. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Good to see everybody.
Yep.